If you started at the back of the pack, the last in the race, would you have what it takes to stick it out right to the end, complete the race, and also win the race? If you're interested on how to bust through and overcome some big obstacles within real estate investing, stay tuned. In this two-part interview series, we're going to tell all. Coming up. Hey everybody, I'm Russell Westcott. I help real estate investors start, grow, and scale the real estate investing portfolio of their dreams. So if you're interested in having a little bit of an inspirational story, you are in for a special treat. I asked my good friend Jules McKenzie out of Ontario, out of the Aurelia area, to jump on a podcast episode and a video interview that we did. Now, normally I like doing these video interviews in person where you get to feed off of the energy of each other. But you know what? We couldn't wait. This story to share that I want to share with you just could not wait until Jules and I could actually get together. Now, interesting to note, you may know Jules McKenzie. You may have maybe seen a podcast, maybe even seen a video or two of Jules over the years. But here's the cool thing is we went into some really deep topics, some really heavy topics. And actually, Jules shared some insights and some parts of the story that he had never shared on any other platform before. So you guys are in for a really special treat and a really deep look into some real big topics. Okay, now when I originally, quick backstory before I get into the interview, I originally set aside an hour and a half to do the interview with Jules because his story is that deep. It has that many nuances and that many, turns and twists and car chases, and it's got everything. Honest to goodness, this story that you're about to hear has truly a little bit of everything in it. So remember the story. I set aside an hour and a half and I had an entire agenda. I always do a significant show prep when I do any of these kind of interviews. And we were going to go deep into a lot of different topics. And I was sitting there and I'm looking at my watch and I go, holy moly, we're actually an hour in already. And we haven't even started talking about the real estate side of things yet. But the conversation was just so good, I just couldn't cut it off. So what we did was I said, you know what, Jules, let's call a timeout. Let's finish the story we're telling right now about your upbringing, your background, where you came from, and then we would make a commitment to do a second follow-up recording. So what you're going to be watching here first is part one of a two-part series with Jules McKenzie. In this first part, we go deep into his upbringing, the challenges, the hatred, the bigotry, where he grew up with no running water, and what he had to overcome in order to even just get out of the environment he was at. There's a wonderful metaphor that, and I'm not going to give it all away, but pay attention to the metaphor used in the gravel road onto the pavement. Okay. So there's a lot of topics that Jules and I go headfirst into here. And you know what? I could go on and on about this interview, but I think I just want to cut right to it because you guys are in for a very special treat. But before we do dive into it and before we cut to it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the bell notification to get notification when the next video comes out. One other thing I would love if you could do is please share this video. Drop a comment below. Please share this video out on the social media channels, and we need to spread this message out to a wider audience. So with all that being said, let's just get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Jules McKenzie. Hey, Jules McKenzie, welcome to the show today. How you doing today, brother?
Fantastic as always, Russell. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Oh, Jules, couldn't be better. And the reason why I'm saying I couldn't be better, when I was looking at my calendar today and I saw our conversation was upcoming, it put a smile on my face. So,
well, that's good.
Anytime I get a chance to have a conversation with you, Jules, and I'm sorry if this sounds like I'm, pumping your tires or whatever, but I truly feel like I'm a better person after we've had this conversation.
I appreciate that. Yeah, likewise, Russell. It's always very insightful and educational and entertaining to have a conversation with yourself.
So here's the question I asked you as a starting one is, and I was going through my show notes and my prep and everything like that today. And how long has it been? When did we first meet? How long has it been?
Funny you mentioned that. I was making myself a coffee and I was thinking, how long have I known Russell? Because I know it's been quite a while. I would guess I was actually in the room when you approached Don Campbell about doing or accepting your resume. and you said, I have a conversation. I have something I want to talk to you about. And Don says, actually, I have something that I need to talk to you about as well. And that was in Toronto. And I'm guessing that was 2005, 2006.
Yeah, that's probably 17, 18, pretty close to 18 years ago. No, maybe. Yeah. Wow. So listen to us old guys here with our memory lapses or something. We maybe need to start getting some supplements and some vitamins to help get that memory going again.
Something like that, yeah.
So for those of you that, if you are listening to this on podcast, Jules and I are doing this on Zoom, and it's wonderful. Normally, I like to have these ones, what I call standing on the shoulders of giants. I like to have them in person because we can have a better connection. But you know what? This year, it's just been a little weird. So technology is fantastic. And speaking of connections, Jules, when was the last time you've been called Jules the Tall?
Jules the Tall. I think you were the last person to call me that.
We have to be careful here that we don't have some of these side jokes that only Jules and I will probably know. Yeah. or I also want you to remind everybody of your mandate, Jules, about how you're planning to take back this country one title at a time.
Just following the footsteps of my father, who was the chief on our little Indian reservation in Western Quebec. Yeah. And I'm off the territory. And I'm buying back all the reservation land one title at a time.
So that's a perfect actually segue into the story here. Now, we're going to do a little different in the story, and I tell stories a little bit different. We're actually going to give the ending of where you are today, and then we're going to go back in time. So Jules, I saw this wonderful post, and it just warmed my heart when I saw that you and Ange have bought this brand new lifestyle property. Tell us about your latest venture that you're working on.
So actually, the property was built in 1889, and it was
back when we were both born, right?
Yeah. Back when I was just getting into this business. It's a Victorian style home. It's about just under 5,000 square feet, and it was previously run by Lee Johnson and his wife as the Kavanaugh Spa. And they kept the Kavanaugh name because it was the Kavanaugh family who immigrated to Canada and this location in particular and built this house. So Ange and I bought it from Lee Johnson, and we are going to keep the Kavanaugh name because I think that's only the right, respectful thing to do to honor their heritage and their perseverance. And we're going to call it the Kavanaugh Bed and Breakfast. And this, for us, is going to be our ultimate house hack and my one aspect of my retirement plan.
Nice. So this was a dream of yours and Jules, yours and Ange, wasn't it?
Well, my dream was financial independence through real estate investing. Angie's dream somehow came up that she wanted to invest in a bed and breakfast type property. So while our goals and objectives and dreams are very much commingled, this is kind of her pet project, and she's definitely taking the lead on it. She's out doing some general contracting right now with the guys and seeing through some projects within the house and outside the house. Yeah. But this particular aspect, this particular project was hers. I bought a little commercial property earlier this year, and thanks to COVID-19, I wasn't able to rent it out right away. But as a result of COVID-19, there was a hair salon that is letting go some of their stylists. So 3 stylists got together and said, "Hey, how about that commercial space that's vacant? Why don't we open up a shop there?" And I've been toing and froing with the lawyers and their lawyers just to get a commercial lease drafted up. And it looks like I got a deal closing this week on renting out that commercial space. Yeah. Thank goodness, because I was about $500-600 a month upside down without the commercial tenant.
Hey, did you negotiate free haircuts?
Well, I don't have a lot on top there much anymore. I could probably just buzz it off myself.
I was about to make the joke. Yes, that's my dream too, is to own a hair salon. So I would be remiss, Jules, if I did not please pass along a big hug and a kiss to your lovely wife Angie for me. She's
Absolutely.
such an amazing lady, and I'll tell you what, you prescribe to the same path I do of marrying somebody way above above what we deserve as spouses.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah, if it wasn't for our spouses, we both would be. I don't even know. I actually am frightened to think where I would be without Corrine in my life. It'd be scary.
Without Ange in my life, I'd be happy to rent a bed in the corner of somebody's garage. Like I just wouldn't have any ambition at all.
Yeah, nice. And it looks like you have pets in your office there too. Just like I have a.
That's our grand pet.
Yeah.
That's my son and his girlfriend's dog, and then my dog is just outside the door.
Yeah.
So she's a little more obedient than this one.
Right. I got a snoring, farting dog underneath my desk here too. So. So with that being a wonderful segue, Jules, you had mentioned, so we've talked kind of where you are today. So it didn't start out this way, did it, for you? You have a very non-traditional upbringing and a non-traditional path of you getting there. And I just want to put one caveat here is I'm going to ask you some of these questions, Jules, and my entire intention of this asking is, and I will 100% agree that I don't know a lot about the lifestyle. I don't understand. And I would say that I'm a little bit ignorant when it comes to that. And, there's a big buzzword around privilege and stuff like that. And I would 100% agree that I have privilege of my upbringing of what I've had, but I'm a firm believer there's a lot of stories that can be told in the process of what we're doing on this journey become successful real estate investors. So I'm going to sit back a little bit and I'm going to ask lots of interjecting questions, but tell me a little bit about the backstory, where things started that has be some relevance for the human journey that you're on as a real estate investor.
Okay. So I'm originally from northern Quebec. I'm from a little First Nation called the Quebec First Nation in Chippewa, Quebec. It's on the just off of the Ottawa River, just east of Témiscamingue, Quebec, which is the home of Tembec. And I was born into a time when the FLQ crisis was still fresh in everybody's mind.
FLQ, just for
the French language Quebec movement, French Liberation Quebec movement, and they were a small group of people with radical ideas seeking independence from the federal regime known as Canada. And it was just a lot of time of turmoil. The English versus the French versus the Indigenous versus everybody. It was just a crazy time.
You're describing the past, aren't you, Jules? You're not describing today?
I'm not describing today by any means. And it's one of those things, right? Like I've because of my career and because of my chosen path in investing in real estate, I've managed to travel the country, and sometimes there's a little bit of rivalry. There's a little bit of a disconnect between the East and the West. But I like to think that guys like you and us are trying to bridge that gap and make this country a little more united than what it has been in years gone by.
Yeah, and as you say, you're taking back the titles properties back the reservations one title at a time, right?
One title at a time, and I'm happy to rent them back to white peoples.
So tell us a little bit about the upbringing. I imagine it's, I grew up in really small town Saskatchewan, and, my wife grew up in metropolitan city, and she can't believe some of the things I would tell about my childhood and going to be able to play with anybody and go across the street and, skate down the street in the middle of winter to go to the outdoor hockey rink and, just stuff like that. But I imagine it was a different story where you grew up.
So I grew up on the reservation. My ancestors originally from Hunters Point, Quebec, which is at the northeast corner of Lake Chippewa. And in order for us to have our rights, our hunting and fishing rights, which was my father's passion to fight for, we had to get corralled up together and live on a tiny Indian reservation on the shores of Chippewa, Quebec. And my father was was the chief of the reservation. My mother was the band manager. They got a generous CMHC budget from the federal government for 30 houses to house 300 people, which is the total membership back then of the Kebowek First Nation. And as you can imagine, that math don't work so good. So my parents had to make a lot of tough decisions, and I bore the brunt of those tough decisions because there were some people left without housing. It took many, I don't want to say many years, but it took a few years to get hydroelectricity. It took a few years to get the houses built. It took a few years to get running water and the proper water, sewage, and sanitary services put in. And if that wasn't enough, we went to French Roman Catholic school in Témiscamingue, Quebec, and we would get into a few of these with the French Quebecers who didn't appreciate us taking up their space. And conversely, my white Anglo-English friends would just kind of sit on the sidelines saying, "Oh, no, don't include me in this, please." And it was kind of a time of turmoil. It was a time of some racism. There was frustration, and I remember during an election period, my dad was holding our door closed and was seated in his Chesterfield with a shotgun on his lap because we didn't know if somebody was going to bust in at any moment and try to take us out. That was kind of the environment that I grew up in, and I didn't dare venture too far off the territory without either my brother or some friends, because that would be a silly thing to do. You get beat up and hurt pretty bad because you were stepping out of where you're supposed to be. Wow.
Now we're not talking the Stone Ages here. We're talking just mid 70s, I would imagine, is the time frame we're talking. Is that correct?
Yeah, the late 70s, early 80s.
Right.
84, I was probably around 16. 85, I was 17. And I just remember looking down at the end of the dirt road because on the reservation it was all dirt road, gravel, a little bit of gravel, but mostly dirt road. And just looking at the edge where the asphalt started and wondering what would be for me on the other side, on the asphalt side of that road. And I'd been to North Bay, Ontario a few times with my parents. And back then it was a journey to get down there and do shopping and whatnot. And I always, was just kind of fantasizing about living in an environment where I wasn't actually, I wasn't seeking to be coddled or cuddled. I just wanted to have a fair shake like everybody else and have a chance to make something of myself, and wondered what that could be.
Yep.
And I remember my last, I guess the last year that I lived on the res with my dad. My mom had passed away earlier in the year when I was 17 years old, and my dad kind of banging his fist on the kitchen table saying, "Son, it's the richest, it's the freest, it's the most incredible country in the world. Now go out and just do something good with your life."
Yeah, it's all about the choices and decisions, correct?
Yeah, and I really believed him at that time. I really respected him and looked up to him. He was a war veteran of World War II, and he was in power on our little reservation for probably about 15 years. So that's all I'd ever known was him to be doing that.
Yeah. Well, now I would imagine what was it like to, like I'm saying, I don't know and I don't fully understand. But that's why I want to have this conversation, respectfully have this conversation, is what was it like and how did it make you feel, or how did it shape you with that racism? And I imagine you were called every name in the book and, just stuff like that. Like, how did that shape you?
We were called savages, and, that was very hurtful. And, it really made me feel belittled and below everybody else. And nowadays, through a lot of recovery and a lot of counseling and a lot of work on myself, I like to use the word savage when I'm at the CrossFit gym.
I see some kind of a fitness apparel line or something, and Jules McKenzie sponsored by Savage Athletics. And then talk about how you've used your circumstances to elevate yourself as opposed to be a victim of it.
Absolutely. Like you talk about privilege, and to me, white privilege is probably a thing. I don't really know for sure, but I like to think of privilege as more of an advantage. And in my particular case, I had an unfair advantage, and at the time, I didn't recognize that. I was socially awkward. I was naturally an introvert. But I had brief moments where I was outgoing, charismatic, and I had very strong investigative skills in that I would want to learn something completely inside out, and not just learn it, but actually apply it and master it.
Yeah.
And I believe that those skills are my unfair advantage.
Yeah.
When you talk about privilege, I'm privileged with having the ability to overcome obstacles and challenges and grow from them.
Yeah. But, and it's funny, speaking back about my wife, she actually shared this or turned me onto this video. And I think it was a school teacher that kind of showed they did an example of what kind of privilege and things like that would be. And, raise your hand if you have both your children, both your parents. Okay, take 2 steps forward. And then eventually they got people to, based upon the more things they had in their life, how many of you have, a hot meal, or how many of you have money in your pocket? And those people just got to start a little bit ahead. And so all these kids were staggered along there, and they go, okay, now down there at the end is the goal. Now we're going to have a race. And there's some people that were starting for significantly further behind the other kids. And you had something where you were really starting quite a ways behind other people when you were on your whole journey, were you not?
Yes. Yeah, I would say that's a fair statement.
Yeah. So what was the difference? But then here lies the question: is what was the difference between you? And I imagine you had good buddies and friends on the reservation. Like, what was the difference between you and your neighbor buddy, and maybe you can give him a name if you want? What was the difference between the choices and the things that you did versus the person that didn't get off the reservation?
That's a tough one, but I consider one of my best friends, Greg. Let's call him Greg.
Okay.
So Greg got to hunt and fish with his parents. They still had a camp set up in our ancestors' historical territory up in Hunters Point. And he could hunt and he could fish. He could clean fish. He could clean a moose and cook it. And I wasn't able to do that because my parents were both very busy working full time. Contrast that with the fact that my parents occasionally took me on long trips with them to either Ottawa or Quebec City, or even as far away as Victoria, BC, when I was a lot younger. So I was able to get a look at the outside world and start to figure and wonder if I could actually fit in out there. Greg, unfortunately, didn't have that opportunity, and my parents had to make a lot of tough decisions because of their leadership role. And there was a lot of families that my dad, for lack of a better term, pissed off because he didn't give them a house. And growing up, I was very much the youngest of 5 children. My brother's 15 years older than me. I was a bit of a surprise, as you can imagine. And, I got picked on a lot on the res, and then I got picked on a lot at school as well. So, man, that's a lot to conjure up and dig up.
Well, and when you say a surprise, I would say you were a very good surprise, by the way. So,
thanks, Russell.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, so really, what was it? So really, if I could maybe I'm just going to bookend this for everybody, if you are listening or watching it came down to, you had some role models, some coaches and some mentors, and I'm going to use coach and mentor. It was just dad. Let's just call it dad, right? Yeah. Dad challenged you to think a little bit bigger outside of your situation. Okay.
Yes.
You changed the environment by going and seeing something else. You actually got to see that there was something outside of the reservation. There was running water. You could flip a switch on the wall and the lights turned on, right?
Yeah.
And it really did came down to probably choices and decisions, which, talk to me about the decisions that were made for you to eventually leave the reservation down that dirt road to onto the pavement. Like, what a perfect metaphor, right?
It really comes down to that. And, there was some people that are just comfortable in their circumstances and they don't want to venture out outside of that. I had a huge desire to see what was out on the outside world and what part I could play and how could I participate in the outside world. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought there.
I'm gonna echo two things you said. Your focus was not on yourself. Your focus was, what role can I play and what can I contribute to others? Right?
Yes.
I think that might be one of the starting points, is what can you offer to others? That might be the starting point for you to leave a situation, because if you were mainly thinking about yourself, you might not have ever left, because you would have been thinking of yourself and have been, oh, woe is me. Look what's happened to me. This sucks. And all of a sudden now you're going to start learning how to quarter the moose and fillet the fish and be like Greg.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So what was when did you leave the reservation, and what was the part of the story there? Because this is a very pivotal moment as well.
So I left. My sister, who's next oldest to me, she's 10 years older than me. She was in her second or third year at Carleton University in Ottawa, and my father suggested maybe I go stay with my sister down there and see what it's like in the big city of Ottawa. So I did that. And I transferred high schools to Brookfield High in the South End. And I don't know if you recall the original Crocodile Dundee movie, where he goes out on his walk.
So you're telling me you had a knife and you pulled out a big giant knife down there?
Oh, I carried a knife, no doubt about it. Hopefully the statute of limitations has run out on that, but I did. The thing about that was, I remember the first time getting off a transit bus in downtown Ottawa on Bank Street South. I was trying to literally say and be polite to every single person that I seen on the street, and saying, hello, good afternoon, hello, good afternoon. And it was just virtually impossible to do that, of course. Yeah. But there goes my experience, right? Like, yeah. I had no idea that there would be that many people kind of corralled into one spot, trying to take advantage of the one bus on this mass transit system in the big city of Ottawa, because otherwise it's kind of hard to get around with a car. Back then it's the late 80s, early 90s. It's not feasible for some. And it was quite a culture shock. Yeah. I will say, the first time I walked into an arcade was in the big city of Ottawa, and my mind was just completely blown. Saw MTV for the first time on a television, and just lost my mind. I couldn't believe that.
What was the first video you saw on MTV? Do you know, Jules?
I think it was Van Halen, and it was the Jump video. Yeah. And I just couldn't believe it. And the big thing about that was, they said it cost them $500 and a case of beer to make that video. And it just blew my mind completely.
Yeah. And how things have changed, Jules, that kids nowadays walk around with these contraptions in their hip pocket and have every video ever made and every song out there at a moment's notice, eh?
And it's an encyclopedia in their pocket. Like, if they need to know something, they could just type in a question or physically ask the phone a question, and it will come back with an answer.
Yeah. How about us old timers here reminiscing about the good old days, and we're talking about the mid 80s.
Yeah, really.
So, do you go back to the 80s music when you have a chance to listen to the...
Absolutely.
That's what we have too. If we ever have a choice, if we have a Sirius XM or satellite, whatever, it's always 80s on 8.
Yeah. I usually tell everybody in the truck, if they're all with me, I'll say, okay, meanwhile, back in the 80s.
Yeah. All right, Jules. So moving to Ottawa, did you do your high schooling in Ottawa?
I did, but I dropped out, unfortunately.
Oh, tell me about that. I wasn't familiar with that.
So my
You
marks,
weren't kicked out or anything, were you, Jules?
No, I wasn't kicked out. Actually, no, I wasn't. My mother had passed away while I was going to high school in Ottawa, and I got, I don't want to say I got hooked up with the wrong crowd, but I got hooked up with a crowd that I hadn't really been involved with before. The preppy, for lack of a better term, the preppy white dudes didn't really want to have anything to do with me. You know, I was mostly hanging around with kind of nerdy, don't really fit in well type people. One of my best friends back from high school was a black guy named Bo, and he was actually a mulatto, and I think he still is. And we're still friends today. But I think he took pity on me because he could tell that I was socially awkward, not really wise to the ways of the 80s and how to fit in. And he just kind of took me under his wing, and, you know, we did some really cool things. And me being me, taking things to the extreme the way that I did, you know, I probably partook in a little bit too much excess in let's say certain herbal substances and alcohol and skipping school and, you know, just going out and seeing what's about and around in the town.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I fell behind, and I eventually dropped out. I remember drinking too much, and my sister telling me that I actually fell up the stairs. When I lived with her, I lived in the attic of a rental house that she had on a Polydor Avenue in Ottawa, South End. And she said, "You fell up the stairs. I could hear every step that you took upstairs." And I essentially woke up in my own vomit in my bed. And I remember a short time after that, my brother, he's my only brother. He came down from Sudbury. This is a guy who was working in the pulp and paper industry for probably 10, 11 years and decided he was going back to university to get his degree for teaching. And my sister probably had a conversation that went along the lines of, "Oh my God, he's at it again. I don't think I can handle him. Why don't you come and get him and see what you can do?" So my brother came down. All I remember was, "Go pack your bags. You're going to come with me. We're going to Sudbury."
And that'll toughen. Going to Sudbury will toughen anybody up.
Oh yeah, it did. It did. So I went from that to Cambridge College. He put me. Yeah, I would say it's fair to say that he put me in the adult upgrading program, and that was a program for people that didn't have a high school diploma. And I actually mastered that program. I had a brief stint of some sobriety and clarity, and actually took my education serious, and you know, got my equivalency to a high school diploma, and got accepted to the general arts program at Cambridge College.
Wow. Now, I had a little snicker a little while ago when you were telling your story about when you talked about being socially awkward. If any of you have ever had the pleasure, and I mean, it is a true honor and a pleasure if you get a chance to meet Jules McKenzie in person. First of all, how tall are you, Jules?
I'm probably more like 6'3" now. I'm starting to shrink a bit in my old age.
No, you're a big guy. Like, you're tall.
I'm not a small guy. Yeah.
Yeah. A big, tall guy. And if Jules is ever in a room, he's the kind of guy you want in the audience when you're doing a presentation, because Jules is in the front row and he's going, woohoo! He's cheering away. And it's like a dream audience to have all Jules McKenzie's. Like, you're one of the most outgoing, friendliest people I've ever met. And it is truly an honor if you get a chance. Let's put it this way. If you meet Jules, you'll never forget him, ever. Like, you're just that kind of a person, right?
Thanks, Russell. Thank you.
So you went down to Sudbury. You partaked in a little bit of let's call it the politically correct thing of calling it experimentation of of things.
That's a fair statement.
Yeah. Well, I guess now it's legal, right? All that kind of stuff.
It's legal now, so it's marijuana. That's what it is.
And it's kind of ironic of a lot of those things that led you into a career choice that you eventually went into. So let's talk about from the GED to probably the career that you were in. And there was a couple pivotal moments in there as well that you shared before.
Absolutely. So I got into the general arts program, general artsy fartsy kind of stuff with a native studies option, and I got a B in native studies of all things. I got.
You weren't very good at it.
Not very good at it. Not very good at this education thing. But I was going to help the people and save the people, just like my father. And I ended up taking a program in my third year, called the Native Child and Family Care Worker Program, which is essentially a counseling program. And I was learning how to counsel people because I was going to save the people. And I took that course and started to realize, I'm pretty good at talking to people, pretty good at counseling people, but I don't think that this is for me. And I left it out in my backstory, but because of the amount of picking on I experienced back on the res, back at my parents' house, I remember my father would drive me to the YMCA in North Bay, and I started martial arts. When I transferred my high school to Ottawa, I went to Duveris Martial Arts, which is a Greek guy, but he absolutely mastered the art of Goju-Ryu karate. I did that for a couple of years. And when I went to college in Sudbury, I joined Gold's Gym. And there was a few nights a week that you could come out for open mat. And open mat simply is whatever style of martial art, whatever style of grappling, whatever style of wrestling, whatever you like to do. There's a whole group of guys that like to do that with you, and we kind of learn from each other and roll and do those kind of things. And I did that for a couple of years while I was going to college in Sudbury. One afternoon, I went in to train. I was just doing a regular workout session with weights, and there was 3 or 4 guys that I worked out with that were much older than me. And I remember reading an article in the Toronto Star in the classified section, and it was an article by the Ontario Provincial Police, and they were looking to hire recruits for the recruitment drive. And I remember running this by my workout buddies, saying, how's that OPP thing? What kind of career would that be like? And the guys just lit up; their eyes just went wide, and they're just like, "Wow, you know what? You would be really good at that." I'm like, really? You think that I would be good at that? Yeah, absolutely. I said, well, how do you know that I would be good at that? Because we're all members of the OPP, and they worked in Dowling Detachment and Sudbury Detachment. And I didn't even realize that they were cops, but they were cops, and they liked to train and work out in their spare time. So lo and behold, I went to the detachment in the south end of Sudbury. I went up to the old staff sergeant, and he had gray hair, and he had his glasses kind of down like that. And I had long, business in the front, long in the back.
You had a mullet. You had a good mullet. Yeah. Did you have? Yeah.
I had my choker on, which is a native thing. And I went in there. So I'd like to apply for the job of police constable with the OPP. And the receptionist says, "Oh, really? Just a moment." And she went back and didn't just grab like another cop. She grabbed like the staff sergeant, the guy that's in charge of the whole outfit. And he came out and looked over his glasses at me and said, "So, son."
Oh, the best of them. They always call you this. They call you son, right?
"Now, son, you want to join the Ontario Provincial Police?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And he brought me back to his office, and we actually sat down and had a very candid and forward and direct conversation about policing in Ontario as an Aboriginal person. And lo and behold, he helped me fill out my application. And 6 months later, I was on my way to the OPP Academy. Back then, it was in Brampton, Ontario, another big friggin' city in the greater Toronto area.
And what year did you go into the academy?
So I went into the academy on November 6th, 1989. I remember it just like it was yesterday.
Oh, well, it almost is. 1989. So you've been a proud member of the OPP since?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
So yes, I was a member of the OPP up until 1998. When I transferred down to Rama, which was back then called the Minjikaning First Nation, just on the east side of Lake Koochiching, just east of Aurelia. And I was brought in as one of the OPP officers with experience. I was going to coach the new First Nations officers that were part of what would become the Rama Police Service. And I coached four guys back to back. A coaching of a new recruit usually is a 12-month period. And it's I coached 4 of those guys in under 2 years. And after having a near nervous breakdown, because I wanted to do a good job, the police board chairperson and the chief of the First Nation asked me if I would consider, patching over to join the Rama Police Department. And I said, well, you see, I have a safe, secure government job with the Ontario government. So what could you possibly offer me? Not realizing that 70% of the budget came from the revenues of Casino Rama. Casino Rama is probably at the time the second largest employer in Simcoe County. And I could have asked for the sun and the moon. I probably would have got it, but I simply asked for wage parity and to carry over my years of seniority. And they said, yeah, for sure, we could give you all that. When can you start?
Yeah. So, but you wanted, it's like been anything in your life, you wanted to earn it, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to earn it. I'm not looking for a handout. I'd rather have a helping hand up than a handout. And I remember that afternoon calling Angie saying, Ange, how do you like the area? She says, oh, I think Aurelia is beautiful. I think it's great. I said, good, because we might be here a while. I'm about to sign on to join the Rama Police and leave the OPP.
Yeah, and you fell in love with the area.
Yeah, we did.
And if anybody has ever been there, it's not hard to do.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
But we'll just keep that our secret, eh, Jules? So,
well, I don't know. There's a lot of people find it out now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially with people leaving, all those downtown Torontoers that are making their way out your way. What did I just read recently is how much the growth of all the small towns and single family houses, they're at all-time high of sales numbers, and condos and downtowns and stuff like that are all-time lows at the moment.
Yeah, they're dropping off. The condominium market in downtown Toronto is dropping off a bit. Yeah. And it started when the pandemic hit in mid-March. Yeah. When they closed up all the Airbnb properties. The Airbnb properties were converted to long-term rentals. Long-term rentals that go vacant for a while usually draw down on the value of the underlying property. A lot of those people thought, well, I can rent for cheaper outside of the area, and I don't have to commute to work anymore. Yep. So I'm going to go up to Aurelia, or I'm going to go up to the south end of Barrie, or I'm going to go up to Gravenhurst or Huntsville or Bracebridge or any number of little small centers that previously we didn't really have that much action, but now there's a lot of action. Yep.
And I already hear the people listening to this podcast or watching this video going, finally, real estate. What a transition. They are going to talk about real estate. Now guys, I'm a firm believer in, I actually think it's more important about the people we become in the process of becoming a real estate. And that's why I love to have these conversations with the people of what shape everything that Jules talked about, of his background, of his upbringing, of being bullied, of being Mick Dundee walking through Ottawa, saying hello to everybody, shy, awkward kid, going into the Cobra Kai dojo. I'm joking with that one. Meeting the OPP people. All those things shaped your experiences leading up to you becoming a real estate investor, did they not?
Absolutely, dude.
Now we are, and I'm also going to I'm sensing we may have a part 2 to this conversation, where maybe part 2, Jules. So I want to be respectful of your time, because you do need to go work out here. You mentioned when we first got started, you need to go hit the gym. So why don't we do this? Why don't we make a commitment that we will book a second conversation, you and I, and the second one will be 100% all real estate. But there's a couple more things that I want to talk to you about, the backstory leading up to you becoming a real estate investor. Okay.
Russell, I'm happy to have a conversation with you anytime.
Well, Jules, I have to be brutally honest. I just want the bromance to continue.
Absolutely.
Now, share with me, there was one other pivotal moment that you shared a little while ago, and I think we maybe we didn't quite get to it, where it led to a decision that you've made into sobriety. And I think that was a really important lesson and something I think you should share with the audience here.
Okay. So every once in a while, I would take things to excess, and without logic or reason, I didn't understand what the problem was. Everybody was coming down on me, saying, "Well, you drank too much. You said something really aggressive and awkward, and it pissed off everybody in the room." And I'd be like, "What are you talking about? I don't understand." And I would go through periods of abstinence from alcohol and substances, and everything was all right. So once the heat was off, I would go back to my old ways and, get back into the same rabbit hole again. And it wasn't until I actually got on the OPP. I was in my first posting up in Armstrong, Ontario, which is about a 3-hour drive north of Thunder Bay. And once again, just out of the blue, I'm in a bar. Next thing I know, a fellow colleague is knocking on my door in my trailer. I come out, there's smashed glass everywhere and broken furniture. And he's pissed off and angry with me, and he's got a goose egg on his eye, and he's saying, "Look at what you did to me." And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, man. Like, what are you talking about?" And there was these 3 guys. They weren't regular members of the OPP. They were part of the Gull Bay First Nations Police, which is just south of Armstrong. And they were all happy, and they were together, and they were clean, and they were apart from a bit of a language barrier, they were very well spoken and knew the content they were speaking of. And they gave me these helpful suggestions. Well, you got to take things one day at a time, and you got to be easy does it. And they gave me those little brochures and these little questionnaires with 10 or 12 questions, like something about I might be an alcoholic. And I agreed wholeheartedly with the content of their message. I said, yes, absolutely. I think Alcoholics Anonymous is a good program. It helps people recover and restore their lives, but that's for somebody else. Because don't you know, I'm a member of the provincial police, and I'm a professional, and how could I possibly be an alcoholic? And that was my introduction into it. I remember, I think it was, let me get my math straight here. So it was 1991, October 10th. Actually, my sobriety date's coming up in a few days. October 10th, 1991. I was I went to the classy places. I went to the Waverly Hotel. I stayed at the Shoreline Hotel, and I'm talking like real classy, like wood paneling on the walls, shag carpet on the floors. You lie in a mattress and you sink, and I mean sink right down to the floor, like the real classy places. As long as you didn't breathe and didn't stink too bad. And that was what happened to me. And I remember those guys showing up, those 3 guys from Gull Bay, and they're in nice clothes and they're clean. And they said, "Hey, man, get ready. You got to have a shower right now. Get up." And I'm like, "What? What's going on?" "Well, we got to go to a meeting." I said, "Meeting? What meeting?" "Just get ready. Let's go." And I remember they pushed me in the shower, humiliated me, got me cleaned up, dressed, out the door. Into they had a big old Suburban with the old Suburbans had the big 2 bench seats, one in front, one in the back. And I remember Gene literally almost putting me in an arm bar and putting me between him and Mike, and they were in the front seats, and Sam jumping in behind me like, "Okay, guys, I'm in the vehicle. I'm not going anywhere. Like, don't worry about it." And that was my introduction to my first meeting. And I remember looking at a couple of guys saying, "Oh shit, I arrested that guy." And, "Oh, I dealt with that guy too. And, they're all snickering and laughing at me.
Yeah. Well, you were brought down to, not down, you were put down to their level because of your drinking, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I still believe that, I'm even in spite of my recovery, in spite of that experience, I'm not any better or higher or lower than anybody else. Yep. It's just different, varying degrees of experiences,
That's
right?
Much better way of putting it. Yes.
Yeah. And,
so,
I still subject myself to those meetings. Yep. And, I still offer up my advice and my help whenever I can. And it's amazing because I actually learn a few things when a newcomer comes along in those circles and tells me about their experience out in the world during, their excesses and uses of substance and alcohol.
Yep.
And I got to tell you, it's not getting any better out there by any means.
Yeah. And you just said a truism that I 100% firmly believe, that there has never been any good ending to a story that started off with, I found myself in a bar. But guys, I may be 100% wrong in my math here, but you're coming up on 29 years sober.
That's right. 29 years of continuous sobriety.
Wow. That's fantastic. And that's actually this. So that in and of itself is a huge achievement. Everything else you've also has done, these have just been amazing milestones for you. And one of the other things that you do because of a lot of this and your upbringing and how things were, you actually counsel young men that have gone through challenging times like this too. Maybe talk about that a bit.
So, it's probably a little more recent in my story, in my history, that the guy that I'm working with now, so in AA, we have what we call sponsors. And keep in mind, Alcoholics Anonymous is still that. It's supposed to be anonymous, but we're a close-knit bunch here on Russell Westcott's podcast. So I'm considering this all part of our
all family. We're family.
Yeah, we're all family here. So I'm going to speak freely about this. I met the person that I'm working with right now, and if I mentioned his name, you would say that guy is an absolute giant from Bay Street in Toronto, and he is. And I'm fortunate that I get to be in that circle. But what he brought, which was absolutely valuable to my life and to my family's life, was a version of the 12 steps and 12-step work that actually does require you to engage and study and read and inventory yourself and your feelings and your defects and do all that kind of work. And that study came from Lamana Oaks, which is a suburb of Chicago, Illinois. And it came from his sponsor, who was who was tied in with the original founders of the organization of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we've been doing that study for the last oh my goodness, probably 6-7 years now. And I try to bring in people that are struggling with not only maintaining their sobriety, but struggling with getting out of their own head and getting away from being restless and discontented and completely unsatisfied with their surroundings and their lifestyle. Because one of the things I think that the original founding members realized was that if it was just about sobriety, like, give me a break, like, who would want to engage in a program like that? The true essence of the program is this ongoing idea of constantly growing and personally developing yourself by doing this 12 steps and reconnecting with a power greater than yourself. I choose to call him God. And, continually working on my inventory, clearing away the wreckage of the past and, sharing that message with others and bringing them into the study and helping them to personally grow and develop.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jules, I knew when I first reached out to you to want to have this conversation and tell this story, I knew this was going to be a deep a deep end of the pool and a big onion to unravel. Not calling you an onion. I'm just saying there's lots of there's lots of layers. Lots of layers.
Yeah, there's a few layers, no doubt about it.
And if guys, here's the thing. And I do want to talk about your fitness before we end off here too. But as deep as Jules's story is on his backstory leading up to this, just wait till you hear about his real estate experience. There is some things that'll put hair on your head, and and some situations that you got into, and some ways that you've gotten out of it. And just, Jules, for the next one, I want you to find the photo album if you could.
Oh, yes.
Yes, please find that.
Okay, yeah, we just moved, so I'll have to dig around and dig that up. But yes. I do have it, and I will find it.
And guys, that's just in the business, that's called a tease to make sure you listen or watch the next one, is the photo album Jules has, and how much money he's raised by this photo album. So, yeah. But we are going to do another one, 100% committed to do a next one. But before we end off here today, Jules, fitness, how old are you now, Jules? If you don't mind
52.
asking. 52. So you've literally transformed your body in your 50s, have you not?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Like what's the secret, if there is a secret?
What is the dealio on that?
What's the deal, Jules?
I was probably before I joined CrossFit, I was hovering around 275, 265 when I was trying to run and lose the weight that way. But I think it was around 2010, 2011. I had severe knee pain, likely caused by my diet and lack of exercise. And I had knee surgeries about a year apart, where they did orthoscopic surgery and removed the back half of my meniscus in my left knee. And on my right knee, my meniscus literally came out in that tube that they stick in your knee to do the knee surgery. And shortly after that, my knee joints just continually deteriorated. And I did a couple of marathons, half marathons, that is, just to, I guess, prove to myself, or try to prove to the world that I could still do it. I don't really know, but it was definitely an ego-driven thing. And I joined CrossFit shortly after that. And during that period, I struggled. I got sick in the bathroom. I dropped things on the floor that I'm not supposed to drop. I fell off equipment that I'm not supposed to fall off of, and just completely did everything wrong. And I remember talking to my coach about this. I said, well, what do I do? He said, well, you're going to have to change everything. I said, change everything about what? Everything about everything. And didn't fully understand it. Interestingly enough, they say that when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And there was a medicine man that came in from the Owen Sound area, First Nation out there. I cannot remember the name of it, but he came in, and he was in Rama doing a teaching. And we could have one-on-one time with him. And I put myself down on the list to go speak to him about my health, because that was his background. He was a medicine man for your not just your spiritual health, but your physical health. And I remember going in, and he was everything you could conjure up of a medicine man. He had a moose hide coat on with beading and embroidery. He had feathers on his hat. He was sitting on a floor, on a blanket, and there was sage and sweetgrass burning, like everything you could conjure up about a traditional indigenous medicine man. And I sat down. I struggled to sit down across from him. And then he looked at me and he says, so you're here obviously because you have bad knees. And I said, yes, sir. That's why I'm here. And he says, have you thought about the fact that you probably shouldn't drink milk? Have you thought about the fact that maybe your system is not responding well to carbohydrates, highly refined flours, breads and pastas, and maybe you shouldn't eat those kind of things? And I was just completely poof, like mind blown. It's like, really? Like, that's what my problem is. And I told him about the knee surgeries and whatnot. And he says, if I was you, I would probably be looking into a non-carbohydrate filled diet. And I would look at losing some weight. And more or less sent me away with a completely, changed outlook on this. I started researching my wife at the time. You
were researching your wife?
She was looking at Dr. Berg. Eric Berg is a doctor who does YouTube videos, and he was talking about this thing called the ketogenic diet. Yep. I also got a book about the ketogenic diet. The book's called The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. He's he's a diabetes doctor out of Toronto. And I started learning about these things, and I guess it would have been probably late 2018, early 2019. I swore off carbohydrates, stopped eating bread, stopped drinking milk, and just made a radical change to my diet. I did struggle with going on and going off and going on and going off. And I knew I had to get away from this mindless eating. So I went to a place called Aurelia Sports Medicine. And
what was that again? Sorry, Jules?
Pardon me?
What was the name again?
Aurelia Sports Medicine.
Okay. Yep.
And got hooked up with Dr. Jason Poor. And he's a counselor and a chiropractor and an all-around just a technician of all things exercise, fitness, and diet. And I was counseled by him to adopt the ketogenic diet. And that's when things really started turning around for me.
Yep.
I started to be able to have good mobility in my knees. I was able to sleep better at night. And the intermittent fasting piece I didn't really speak about, but that's the real key thing that has changed my life. It's all good now. Like it really is.
Yeah. And guys, if you ever want to, where's the best place someone like I follow Jules on some of the social channels and it's just like he in a very gently, polite way, puts it out there when he does his workouts. And I'm sitting there having a plate of nachos or something. And I see Jules do it. Okay, get off the couch, Russell, get working out again. Right. It's like you just lead by example.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And really 90% of it is just showing up.
Yeah.
If you're tied in with a good circle and sphere of influence, like 90% of it is just showing up because they're going to help you and guide you through it anyway. Like I still work out with the same folks at CrossFit Accelerate.
Yeah. And,
my coach has helped me quite a bit. He's probably about 30 years younger than me, but he's still my coach, and I look up to him in terms of training and fitness and helping me to increase my physical fitness and stamina. And it's been working out really well. And
what are you weighing now? And not that weight is the only measurement, but what are you at now?
So right now I hover around 225 pounds.
Yep.
That's the weight I was at when I joined the provincial police way back in November of 1989.
Yep.
And there are times like, Christmas is Christmas, right?
Yep.
So I might go up to 230 pounds.
Yep.
And then there are other times where, I may have a goal in mind, or I'm still competing with kids. They're not kids. I mean, they're adults, but I'm competing with 25, 29-year-olds.
They're kids. They're kids.
Yeah, they're kids. And, I might have a competition coming up where I drop my weight right down. The lightest I've been is 217, which is a little too light.
Yep.
But nonetheless, it goes up, it comes down.
Well, would you consider that you're in your best health of your life in your 50s?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even then when you were a younger person, right?
Yeah, I wish I would have found this 20, 30 years ago, Russell, but, I didn't.
Better late than never.
I'm going to make the most of it every day that I have from here on in.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy. I was just trying to keep up with all the things that we were talking about. So we talked about racism and bullying and being socially awkward and life without electricity and running water and leaving the reservation and hatred and overcoming obstacles and substance abuse and mentoring other people, health, becoming a new person. Holy moly, Jules! Like who's gonna play you in the movie about you?
Oh my goodness, that would be awesome. Hey, maybe Ben Affleck.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go. He's probably, might the real answer. There's only one person that can play the Jules McKenzie story, and that's Jules McKenzie.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's the only person that's worthy of playing that deep of a role. So guys, Jules and I are going to make another appointment to do this because I want to be 100% respectful. And we could, honest to goodness, we could talk for another 3 hours, and you never know, we might be a 3 or 4 part series. But guys, what we're going to do is we are going to do a quick reset. And by the magic of when you're probably going to be listening or watching, it'll be so seamless. But Jules and I are going to make another time to record a second episode. So before we sign off here in this first one, Jules, do you have any final, maybe give some contact information? And if you have a final message you'd like to leave with everyone here, and also give them a little tease on what we're going to learn in the real estate chapter of your life.
So my Instagram is McKenzie.Jules. So I'll spell that for the listeners. It's McKenzie.Jules.
Yep.
So I post a lot of my show off CrossFit workouts there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Jules McKenzie, very simply JULESMCKENZIE. And I'm also under the same name, which is mine, on Facebook. On Twitter, I'm at Mr. Jules McKenzie, spelt the symbol at MRJULESMCKENZIE. And you can also direct message me on those if you really need to speak to me about investing or recovery or doing 12-step improvement work on yourself. Fitness, exercise questions. I'm happy to discuss it all. Absolutely.
And you also know a thing or two about real estate too, don't you?
I know a couple of things about that one.
Well, just for perspective, Jules, how many properties have you transacted up to this point? And just for ballpark for people for some perspective on what we're going to cover next on your real estate chapter.
So as far as transaction goes, far too many to mention. At one point in our investing career, and I mean because Ange and I we've been together on this. We've had over 55 plus properties in our portfolio. As of late, we have been liquidating assets because it's the right time for us. And, we're hovering around 14, 16 properties. There's a couple of properties I don't really count as mine. I helped my son and his girlfriend purchase their first duplex that they're living in. So they have the ultimate house hack. I just I helped them refinance their property in, sorry, the dog's barking.
No, nice.
I helped them refinance their property just before COVID in February of 2020, and they went from a high interest rate of 6.84 to 3.14. So they're essentially living mortgage and insurance and taxes free.
Yep.
And they got their CERB on top of that because they were both laid off. And I just helped my daughter purchase the neighboring property to this property. Because it was just the right time, and the right thing to do. So she's on mortgage and title over there. It's a duplex, and she just rented out the basement to a nice young couple, and she's rented out the 2 bedrooms. She lives in the 3-bedroom upstairs. So, she's got the ultimate house hack going as well. Yeah.
And
we're definitely going to talk more about that in our next episode. And I'm also going to talk about this introverted, naturally inclined to keep to himself person about sales and marketing and how to, learn some skills to help build your real estate portfolio.
Yeah. And we're going to make a commitment to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, aren't we?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Because there's some things that'll guys that, it'll all come from a place of learning and education, but there'll be a lot of, don't do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right on. So Jules, I'll save a formal sign off on the next episode we're going to do, but I do want to just leave you with something. As every time we do have an opportunity, just where you come from, how you show up, you always show up as a person that comes from love and encouragement and inspiration. And I'm a very fortunate person to have got to know you all those years ago. And I can't wait to see what the next version of Jules is. Not that the first one has been amazing, but I honestly, Jules, this is coming from the heart. I honestly think you're just getting started in developing your role as a leader within the community. You haven't even begun to discover how much you have to offer other people.
Well, thank you, Russell. And I really attribute that to great mentorship from people such as yourself.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, guys, through the magic of technology, you probably will be going right to the next one. But Jules and I are going to record the next one, and we will talk to everybody soon. Bye for now. So what did you think? Wasn't that an incredible part one to the story? And like I said, it is only part one. We have another entire hour plus segment that we're going to dive into in the next video. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that notification, and make sure you hit that bell button as well to get notification when the next video comes out. Drop a comment below. What was the biggest takeaway you found from this video? What was the biggest takeaway that you are going to implement from it? The one thing for myself, the biggest takeaway I got was truly, we don't have any problems. We don't. And, it's interesting that I was filming these on a couple days when I was having some challenges, some tenant turnovers and some renovations and some insurance challenges and just some challenges within the business. And after I had the conversation with Jules, I had no challenges, right? There was really no obstacles in my way because Jules just had this amazing insight into looking at the problems and just handling them and just making one decision at a time to change your situation. Okay, now with all that being said, that's just part one. As deep as we dove into Jules's backstory, you ain't seen nothing yet. In part two of this incredible story, we're going to talk about the real estate investing side. If you thought he faced some obstacles in his upbringing, just wait till you hear some of the dilly of a pickles he gets into in his real estate investing career. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification button, and you will get notified when the next video comes out. By all means, share this episode. Please share this out with your social networks. There is a new generation, a brand new generation of real estate investors out there that needs to hear this inspiring message. Okay, guys, until the next one, I'm Russell Westcott. I help real estate investors start, grow, and scale the real estate investing portfolio of their dreams. And always remember, in every interaction you have with another person, leave them feeling inspired, encouraged, and always come from a place of love. Bye for now, everybody.